Sit closer to the fire, children. The night grows cold and the wind moves as though it carries whispers from another world. What I tell you now is not the tale of a mortal woman, nor of some trickster spirit that lurks in the forests. No, this is the tale of one of the great goddesses, terrible and sorrowful, whose shadow still lingers upon the land of the Mexica. Her name is Cihuacoatl, the Serpent Woman. They say she was among the first of the goddesses to rise when the world was young, when the sun had yet to be born. Her body was strong, her face beautiful, but her eyes always shone with something more, something fierce and untamed. She was a mother of the people, a goddess of childbirth and of battle. Do you hear the strangeness in that? The blood of women laboring in childbirth and the blood of warriors dying in the field. It was all one to her, to Cihuacoatl. Both were sacrifices, both offerings that kept the great wheels of the cosmos turning. In Tenochtitlan, the people built shrines to her. They prayed when women labored in pain, calling upon her to grant strength, to spare the child, to spare the mother, and yet many whispered that her favor was never easily won, for she was not gentle. She demanded blood. Some even said that she walked the roads of the city at night, veiled in white, carrying a cradle in her arms. Passers-by who looked too closely would see, ah yes, you know what comes next, that the cradle was empty, or worse, filled with a blade of obsidian. It is said that more than once, the guards patrolling the causeways heard her voice rise into the air, wailing, weeping, like the cry of all grieving mothers at once. "Oh, my children," she would cry, "we must go forth. The time has come." The guards trembled, for they knew her words foretold doom. Always after her wailing, war would follow, and blood would run through the streets and canals. One tale tells of a young warrior named Coaxoc. He was brave and proud, eager to win glory. One night, as he returned from drill along the causeway, he saw her, Cihuacoatl herself. She stood at the water's edge, her white garments flowing like mist, her hair long and unbound. She cradled something against her breast and rocked back and forth, whispering in a voice that was both tender and terrifying. Coaxoc, thinking her a grieving woman, stepped closer to offer aid, but when she lifted her face to him, her eyes burned like obsidian mirrors, and he saw that what she held was not a child, but a flint knife dripping with fresh blood. "Come," she told him, "your fate has already been chosen." The young warrior fled, but he did not escape her prophecy. Soon after, war was declared. Coaxoc was sent into battle, and though he fought with courage, an arrow pierced his heart. His mother, wailing over his body, was said to hear Cihuacoatl's laughter on the wind. Others say that when the Spaniards came, she was heard again, crying through the night. Her voice echoed over the lakes, and the people shivered, for they knew it was a warning that their world was about to break. Even today, some claim that her spirit has not gone. Travelers along lonely roads, mothers who wake in the night, fishermen by the lakeshore, all tell of hearing the cry of a woman, a goddess whose grief has no end. Remember this well, my children. Cihuacoatl is not a ghost of one woman, nor a mere shade. She is the weeping of all mothers who have buried their children. She is the wail of every warrior cut down before his time. And when the night grows silent, and you hear a cry like the breaking of the heart itself, do not answer, for it may be her, walking the earth once more, seeking new offerings to feed the hunger of eternity. Ah, the flames are low tonight, aren't they? They dance and spit, but the shadows grow long around us. It is the right kind of night for a tale of the Naguales. You've heard the word before, perhaps, whispered by your grandmother, or muttered by farmers after a chicken goes missing from the coop. But you have not yet heard the true stories. The Nagual is no ordinary sorcerer. He is a man or a woman who has bound their spirit to the other side, to the ancient powers that crawl in the darkness. Every person is born with a companion, an animal soul bound to their own. For most, it is only a dream shadow, but for those who learn the secret words, who carry the obsidian knife and the smoke of burning copal, the shadow becomes flesh. The Nagual slips from his skin like one pulls off a cloak, and where once stood a man, there crouches a jaguar or an owl or a coyote or even a snake with glistening fangs. There is one tale I must tell you from the time when the Mexica still ruled the Valley of Mexico. In a small village, there was a healer named Yaotl. By day he was kind, mixing herbs for the sick, blessing the newborn, easing the suffering of the old. The people trusted him, but some whispered that he kept strange hours. At night, dogs barked and whined outside his hut. Chickens vanished, and sometimes in the dark just before dawn, villagers swore they saw the shape of a jaguar slipping between the huts, its golden eyes reflecting the firelight. One boy, Tlilpatonki, swore he had seen more. He said that one night, unable to sleep, he crept to Yaotl's hut and peered through a crack in the wall. Inside, he saw Yaotl strip off his very skin. Yes, as easily as you or I might shed a cloak. Beneath, his muscles gleamed like molten stone, and with a growl, he fell to the earth, becoming a jaguar. The boy said he saw Yaotl fold his human skin and hang it carefully on a wooden peg, as though it were a garment before slinking into the night. No one believed the boy at first, but then things began to happen. A farmer was mauled in his fields, claw marks deep across his back, though no jaguar was ever found. A baby was snatched from its cradle and left in the dust, with strange scratches upon its tiny chest. The villagers grew afraid. At last, they went to the boy again and asked, "How do you know these things? How can we stop a Nagual?" And the boy, trembling, told them what the old stories said. If you can find the skin that the Nagual has shed and destroy it, burn it to ashes, then the sorcerer can never return to his human form. He will be trapped, doomed to live and die as a beast. So one night, when the moon was thin, the bravest men of the village gathered. They crept to Yaotl's hut. They waited until the growl sounded, until the black jaguar padded out into the darkness. Then they entered and searched, and there, hanging like a cloak, was the skin of a man. With trembling hands they carried it out and laid it on the fire. The skin writhed and and cracked as though alive, but soon it burned to ash, and far away in the jungle a terrible roar split the night. The men said that Yotl's voice was in it, rage and despair, and the knowledge that he could never again be human. Some say the jaguar still prowls those forests, its eyes full of sorrow, its claws red with anger. Some say his ghost still haunts the edges of villages, searching for the skin he lost. And some whisper that not all naguales were destroyed. There are still men who walk with quiet steps and strange shadows, whose eyes gleam too brightly in the firelight. So I tell you, children, when the dogs bark madly at night, or when you hear the soft pad of feet that are not human just beyond the door, do not open it, do not look out, for the naguales still walk between the world of man and the world of beast, and you may not live to see which face they choose to wear when they find you. Come closer to the fire, my children. Do you hear the night insects? Do you smell the damp earth, the sweetness of the saber blossoms drifting on the breeze? Good, for this is the kind of night when the Ixtabay walks, silent, hidden, waiting. Long ago in the Yucatan, when the Maya still watched the heavens with eyes sharper than eagles, they spoke of two women. One was named Ixtaban. She was poor, dressed in rags, but her heart overflowed with kindness. She gave freely to beggars, tended the sick, and loved those no one else would love. The other was Utzkolel, a woman of noble birth, clean and elegant, her words always pious, but her heart was stone. She judged, she condemned, she gave nothing to those in need. When Ixtaban died, the people of the village thought little of her at first, just a harlot, they whispered. But then a strange thing happened. From her grave burst a fragrance so sweet, it perfumed the whole air. Flowers unknown to them sprang from the earth, their petals brighter than the sun, and the people wept, ashamed that they had misjudged her, for it was clear the gods loved her kindness. But when Utzkolel died, the air filled not with perfume, but with the stench of rot. No flowers grew on her grave, only thorns and nettles. The people turned their faces away, for they saw then the truth of her heart. Ah, but children, that is not the end. Utzkolel's spirit could not bear the shame. Twisted by envy, she rose again. She was beautiful still, perhaps even more so than before, but it was a beauty sharpened like obsidian, meant to wound. She became the Ixtabay, and she learned a cruel trick. She lured men with her loveliness, her voice like honey, her smile soft as silk. She led them beneath the branches of the ceiba tree, that great holy tree, whose roots dig down into the underworld itself. And there she showed her true form. Some say she appeared as a woman with hair like serpents, her face hollow-eyed and grinning. Others say she became a beast, jaguar, serpent, owl, all at once. Always, the men she lured were never seen again. The ceiba roots swallowed them, or their bodies were found twisted and lifeless in the morning light. One tale tells of a young hunter named Nikt. He was strong, brave, and like many young men, too proud. He laughed when the old ones warned him not to walk the roads at night. One evening, After drinking Balche until his head spun, he wandered down the path that curved by the great Saber, and there he saw her. She was waiting. Her skin glowed pale in the moonlight. Her hair fell like black rivers over her shoulders, and her eyes, those eyes, deep as cenotes, shining like stars reflected in still water. She beckoned him, her hand soft and white, and whispered his name, though he had never told it. Nikt followed. Of course he did. What young fool would not? The villagers say they heard his scream at midnight, echoing through the trees. They found him the next day, lying at the roots of the Saber, his face frozen in terror, his chest clawed as though by talons, his heart stilled forever. Some swore the roots of the Saber still dripped with blood, and so the story spread. The Ixtabai walks at night, always fair, always calling. Sometimes she appears as a woman in white, bent as though in grief. Sometimes as a maiden too beautiful for words, and if you follow her, you will never return. Even now, in villages of the Yucatan, men tell of seeing her, a traveler on a lonely road, a singer by a tree whose song lures you closer, a shadow slipping between the cebas when the moon is high. Remember this, children. When you hear a sweet voice in the dark, calling your name, do not answer, do not follow. The Ixtabai waits, and her embrace is colder than the grave. Ah, yes, children, lean close, for the night grows heavy. The fire flickers low, and above us the bats already wheel against the stars. Do you hear their leathery wings? Do you hear the sharp cries as they dart through the dark? Listen well, for the bats of our world are but small shadows of the great terror that waits below. His name is Kamazots, the death bat. He is no ordinary creature, no beast of flesh alone. He is one of the lords of Xibalba, the Maya underworld, where rivers run with blood and trials break even the bravest of souls. His form is monstrous, the body of a man but crowned with the head of a bat, jaws dripping with the hunger of death. His wings stretch wide enough to block out the moon, and in his claws he holds the obsidian blades of sacrifice. His breath stinks of caves and corpses, and his eyes glow red like coals in the hearth. There are many tales of Kamazots, but one of the oldest is told in the Popol Vuh, the great book of the Quiche Maya. You see, long ago, two hero twins, Hunahpu and Izbalanque, challenged the lords of Xibalba, those cruel beings who ruled with suffering and fear. They were cast into trials, each chamber more dangerous than the last, and one of those trials was the House of Bats, the domain of Kamazots himself. The brothers entered the chamber, and it was filled with flapping wings, with shrieks that clawed at the ears, with the reek of guano and death. The bats circled them, thousands strong, but above them all was Kamazots, vast and terrible, waiting for his prey. The twins, wise and cautious, hid inside their blowguns, using them as shelter. All through the long night, they stayed hidden, listening to the rustle of wings, the scrape of claws on stone. But as dawn approached, Hunahpu grew curious. He wished to see if the sun was rising. Slowly, he lifted his head from the blowgun. and in that instant Camazotz struck. With a scream that shook the walls, he swooped down, his claws flashing, his jaws snapping. He tore Hunapu's head clean from his body, leaving the hero's neck spurting blood into the dust. Ixbalanque wept, hiding in terror, but he was clever still. The lords of Xibalba seized Hunapu's head and used it in their ball game, laughing as they kicked it across the court. But the story does not end there, for the brothers were cunning, and with the aid of the animals of the earth, they tricked the lords and reclaimed Hunapu's head, restoring him to life. In the end, the twins defeated the underworld, but never did they forget the terror of Camazotz, the bat whose bite means death. Even outside of that tale, the people feared him. To the ancient Maya, the bat was not only a creature of night, but a herald of sacrifice, of blood, of the fragile line between life and death. They carved his image in stone, sharp-toothed and winged, his eyes wide with hunger. They whispered that he lingered not only in Xibalba, but also in the caves of this world, where the earth's breath is cold and damp. Some said that sacrifices offered in caves were his to claim, and that if one wandered too deep, he might emerge from the shadows, wings stretching wider and wider until the torchlight vanished. And even now, when the bats wheel above us, you must remember, each one is a fragment of Camazotz, a reminder of the night when Hunapu's head fell. If you ever feel the brush of wings too close, or hear the shriek of a bat in the dark when all should be still, guard your neck well, for Camazotz still hungers. His wings still beat in the underworld, and his claws still yearn to drink the blood of men. Ah, you sit in silence now, don't you? The tale of Camazotz has chilled your blood, but I tell you this, children, he was not the only terror below. No, he was but a servant, a guardian of one chamber. Beyond him wait the true masters of the underworld, the lords of death. The Maya called their kingdom Xibalba, the place of fear. To reach it, one must cross rivers of scorpions, rivers of blood, rivers of pus, and at its heart sit the rulers cruel and cunning, who delight in the suffering of men. Their names are whispered with dread: Hun-Kame, 1 death, and Vukub-Kame, 7 death. They are the highest, the twin lords of decay, but they are not alone. Around them gather others, each with power more horrifying than the last. There is Jiquiripat, the flying scab who sends sickness upon the skin, Kuchamaquik, the gathered blood who swells wounds until they burst, Ahalpu, the pus demon, and Ahalgana, the jaundice demon who weaken the body until even breath becomes agony. And then there are the tricksters, lords who do not strike with claw or blade, but with humiliation and despair. They build houses of darkness, of razors, of fire, of cold. They laugh as the proud stumble and fail. It was these lords who summoned Hunapu and Ixbalanque, the hero twins, into their realm. They sought to destroy them as they had destroyed many before. They laid trials so cruel that no mortal man could hope to endure them. First came the court itself, where the lords sat in a row, but half the figures were wooden statues dressed to deceive. When the twins greeted the wrong ones, the court roared with laughter, and the lords clapped their hands with glee. Next came the tests, the house of darkness, where no flame could burn, the house of blades, where sharp stones leapt like hungry beasts, the house of cold, filled with knives of ice that cut the bone, the house of jaguars, filled with prowling, hungry cats, whose eyes gleamed like lanterns, and, of course, the house of bats, where Camazotz took his prize. But the lords were never content with simple death. No, they wanted games. They loved the ball game above all, for it was played with a heavy rubber ball that struck like a stone. They made their captives play, then cheated, using knives hidden in the court or swapping the ball for a skull, and when the captives fell, they cut out their hearts and drank their blood, their laughter echoing across the underworld. Yet for all their cruelty, the lords of death were not invincible. The hero twins tricked them, just as they had been tricked. Hunahpu and Exbalanque allowed themselves to be killed, burned and ground into ash. The lords laughed, thinking the game won. But from the river, the twins rose again, reborn as dancers and magicians. They performed wonders so great that the lords begged for a show of sacrifice, and when the twins struck, they sacrificed the lords themselves, ending their reign and showing that even death could be defeated. But do not be fooled, my children. Though the story says the twins triumphed, the lords of death were never truly destroyed. Their names still linger in sickness, in plague, in the wasting fevers that steal the strong. Their laughter still echoes in caverns and cenotes, in the drip of water that sounds too much like footsteps. When the night air grows damp and you feel your skin prickle with unseen eyes, perhaps it is the lords of Xibalba still waiting, still testing, still smiling, with their teeth sharp and their hearts full of rot. The fire grows low now. Look up, children. Do you see the sky above us? So many stars scattered like embers from the god's own hearth. Beautiful, yes? But in the time of the Mexica, beauty was never without danger. For the stars are not gentle lights. Oh no, they are eyes, they are teeth. And when the sun falters, when the moon swallows his light, then the true shapes of the heavens are revealed. Then come the Tsitsimime. The people said that Tsitsimime were women, once goddesses, who had taken the form of skeletal monsters. Their skulls grinned forever, their bones gleamed white as obsidian, and from their jaws spilled hunger. They lived in the black beyond the stars, kept at bay only by the sun's strength. But when an eclipse darkened the sky, when the sun seemed to die, the people feared that the Tsitsimime would descend to earth. The priests taught that these demons sought to devour mankind, to tear the flesh from our bones and leave only skulls to grin beneath the dark. So, when the shadow crept across the sun, the people wailed and prayed. They offered blood to Tonatiuh, the sun god, to give him strength. They struck their ears, their tongues, their thighs, letting the crimson drip onto the altars, for fear that without sacrifice, the Tsitsimimi would fall like a storm of bones and consume the world. One tale tells of a farmer, Cuautli, who did not believe. He laughed at the priests, saying, "The sun has risen every day, and so it will again. What have I to fear from women made of bone?" But on the day of the great eclipse, when the sky turned black and the birds fell silent. Cuautli was alone in his fields. He looked up, and he saw them. At first they were only shapes among the stars. Then they grew larger, falling, their long hair writhing like serpents, their eyes glowing like dying coals. Their jaws opened wide, and he heard their screams high and sharp, like the scraping of knives on stone. Cuautli ran, but the fields seemed endless. The Tzitzimime reached for him with skeletal hands, their nails long as spears. When the light returned, when the sun broke free, the villagers found Cuautli lying in the dirt, his body unmarked, but his face twisted in terror, his eyes staring wide at a sky that was once again bright. He never spoke again. Others say that Tzitzimime are not only destroyers, they are also guardians. Some claimed that during times of upheaval, when gods died and new sons were born, the Tzitzimime came to protect women in childbirth, as Tzihuacuatl herself once did. For childbirth was war, and the boundary between life and death was thin. To mothers they were fierce protectors, to all others they were death itself. Even now, children, when an eclipse darkens the sky, remember the fear of the ancients. The world holds its breath, and we too feel it. The sudden silence, the chill, the sense that unseen eyes are watching. That is the shadow of the Tzitzimime, the star demons pressing close to the earth, waiting for the sun to falter, waiting for their chance to return. So mark my words, when the day turns suddenly to night, when the air grows heavy and the stars burn too brightly, stay close to the fire. Do not wander, for the heavens are not empty, and the Tzitzimime are hungry still. Ah, yes, the fire burns steady now, and the night grows deep. Let me tell you of the game played by the gods themselves, the game upon which life and death turned, the ball game, children, Ola Malistli to the Mexica, Poctapok to the Maya. Do not be fooled. It was never only a game. It was a battle of the sun against the night, of life against the underworld. The court itself was sacred, long, narrow, shaped like a great eye upon the earth. Its walls sloped high on either side. Atop those walls sat rings of carved stone, through which the heavy rubber ball could pass, though it was no easy feat. The ball was no toy. It was solid, dense, a weight of rubber that could bruise and break bones. The players wore padded belts and arm guards, for they were forbidden to use their hands. No, children, they struck the ball with their hips, their elbows, their knees, keeping it alive in the air as though they danced with thunder itself. The people gathered to watch, crowding the court. Some cheered, some trembled, for they knew what was at stake. The game was more than skill, more than pride. It was a mirror of the heavens, where the sun fought each day against the night, where the gods themselves battled for balance. Do you remember the hero twins, Hunahpu and Expalanque, who dared the lords of Xibalba? Their story too begins with the ball game. Their father and uncle, Hunahpu and Vukub Hunahpu, were mighty players, their skill so great that the thundering of their rubber ball reached down into the underworld. The lords of death grew angry. Who dares play above us? Who dares disturb our rest? They cried. And so they summoned the brothers down to Xibalba, where they were tested and tried, humiliated and destroyed. Hunhunapu was sacrificed. His head hung in a gourd tree, where it later spat the seed that gave birth to the hero twins. When Hunapu and Exbalanque came of age, they too played the game, and their ball struck the earth so hard that once again the lords of death heard it. Again they summoned players into Xibalba, but these brothers were cleverer than their father. They endured the trials, the House of Darkness, the House of Jaguars, the House of Bats. Even when Camazots took Hunapu's head, the twins found a way to restore it. At last, they defeated the Lords of Death by turning the game itself against them. In the court of Xibalba, they showed their skill, their magic, their trickery, until the lords begged for more. Then, with fire and sacrifice, the twins struck them down, and in doing so, ensured the rising of a new sun. From that day on, the ball game was no pastime. It was the theater of the cosmos. Each match echoed the gods' own struggle. The victors were honored as heroes, but sometimes the losers, or in some places the winners themselves, were offered as sacrifices. Imagine it, children. The crowd roaring, the ball thundering across the stone court, and when the last point was won, silence falling like a blade. The chosen player would kneel, painted with sacred colors, and the priest would cut open his chest with the obsidian knife, offering his heart to the gods so that the sun would rise once more. There are ruins still where the ball courts remain, stones cracked and worn, but the shape is clear. If you walk there at night, some say you can hear it, the thud of rubber on stone, the cries of the crowd, the echo of footsteps on the court. The game is not finished. Oh no, it plays on forever, in the underworld, in the heavens, in the hearts of men. So remember this, my children. When you see the sun rise each morning, give thanks, for it is the gods who win the ball game on your behalf. And when you dream of running, of chasing, of a ball that burns like the sun itself, know that you are dreaming the oldest game of all, the game that decides if we live or if the world falls into darkness forever. Ah, yes, the ball game, children. You see now why it was no mere sport, for the sun itself is a player, and his name is Huitzilopochtli, the hummingbird of the south, the great warrior who carries the fire of day across the sky. Without his strength, the world would be lost, and without our offerings, he would falter. The Aztec people told how he was born in blood and battle. His mother, Kotlikyu, the serpent skirt, was sweeping the temple one day when a ball of hummingbird feathers drifted down from the heavens. She placed it at her breast, and in that moment she conceived. When her children, the stars and the moon, heard of this strange birth, they grew enraged. "How can our mother shame us so?" they cried. Led by Koyoksoki, the moon, they armed themselves to kill her. But before they could strike, Quatliku gave birth, not to a helpless child, but to a fully grown warrior, painted in blue, his face bright with the sun's fire, armed with the serpent spear. This was Huitzilopochtli. He rose with a war cry, and at once he attacked his siblings. He slew many, and with his flaming weapon he struck down Coyolxauhqui herself, cutting her into pieces and casting her head into the sky to become the moon. The stars fled, driven away, and so the first battle of the cosmos was won. But it was not the last. No, children, for that battle never ends. Each day, when you see the sun rise, it is Huitzilopochtli rising in triumph once more, chasing Coyolxauhqui and her brothers, the stars, across the sky. Each night, when darkness swallows the world, it is their revenge. The stars regrouping, the moon glaring, the armies of night returning to strike at him again. Only when dawn breaks do we know he has survived, bloodied but victorious. This is why the Mexica gave him offerings. They fed him with hearts cut from the chests of captives, with rivers of blood flowing down the steps of the great temple in Tenochtitlan. The priests cried out that without these gifts Huitzilopochtli would weaken. The sun would slow, stumble, and at last fall. And if the sun fell, then the Tzitzimime, the star demons, would descend and devour us all. One tale says a farmer once refused to offer sacrifice. He mocked the priests and said, "The sun has risen every day without my help, and it will rise tomorrow too." That night, he dreamed of a battlefield where the sun staggered, bleeding, pierced with arrows. He saw Coyolxauhqui's head leering down upon him, and the Tzitzimime swooping close. He woke in terror, and at dawn, though the sun did rise, his fields were burned by sudden fire. From then on, he brought offerings, trembling, to the temple steps. Even today, when the sun rises red and heavy, some whisper that it is Huitzilopochtli bleeding from his endless fight. And when the moon shines bright, chasing the sun across the sky, we are reminded of Coyolxauhqui, her face still plotting vengeance. So remember this well. Every dawn you see is a victory. Every dusk is the beginning of another war. And though the temples have fallen, though the sacrifices have ended, the struggle continues in the heavens. Huitzilopochtli fights still, and the stars wait hungrily for the day he falters. You have listened long, my children. You have heard of goddesses who wail, of men who turn to beasts, of spirits who lure, of bats and demons and the endless struggle of the sun. But all of these are but fragments of a greater story. Let me tell you now how the world itself has lived and died and lived again, and how it will end at last. The Mexica believed that we do not live in the first world, nor the second, nor the third, nor the fourth. No, we live beneath the fifth sun, 4 times before the world has ended. 4 times the gods have built, and 4 times they have destroyed. The first sun was the son of jaguars. In those days, giants walked the earth, but the gods quarreled, and Tezcatlipoca was cast down. In his rage, he sent jaguars to devour the giants, tearing the world to pieces. Darkness fell. The second sun was the son of wind. Quetzalcoatl raised it, bright and shining. But again, the balance broke. Great storms came, hurricanes that tore mountains apart. The people were swept into the sky and transformed into monkeys, forever shrieking in the trees. The third son was the son of rain, but not rain of water, rain of fire. Shutekutli, Lord of flame, burned the world with fire from the heavens. The people became birds, fleeing upward, their wings blackened by ash. The fourth son was the son of water. In this age, Tlaloc, Lord of rain, let loose a flood so vast that the earth drowned. The people were swallowed and became fish, swimming in the endless sea. And so the gods gathered at Teotihuacan, that place of pyramids rising like mountains, to make a new sun. They built a great fire and asked, "Who will leap into the flames? Who will give himself to light the world again?" The mighty gods shrank back. It was the small one, Nanahuatzin, humble and covered in sores, who leapt first. Then Tekuchistecatl, proud and strong, followed after. From the flames rose two suns, blazing in the sky. The gods struck Tekuchistecatl with a rabbit, dimming his light into the pale glow of the moon. And so Nanahuatzin's fire became the fifth sun, the sun we live beneath today. But children, nothing lasts forever. This fifth sun, too, is doomed. The priests whispered that it will end in earthquakes, the ground itself opening to swallow the cities, the mountains falling, the seas boiling, and when it does, when Tonatiuh, our sun, falls from the sky, then the Tsitsimime, the star demons, will descend at last. No blood will remain to feed the gods, no dawn will follow, only bone, only silence, only the long dark. The Mexica feared it. They fed the sun with sacrifice, with blood, with hearts torn from living chests, hoping to delay the end. And for centuries the sun rose, the stars fled, the world lived on. But the prophecy remains. The fifth sun trembles even now. So hear me well, children. Each morning you wake, you live in the gift of the gods' fire, fragile as the flame of this hearth. And one day, perhaps soon, perhaps long from now, that flame will gutter, the sun will fall, and the heavens, the earth, the underworld will collapse into one endless night. Until then, we watch. We wait. We live in the time of the fifth sun.